All right, welcome everyone to the Spiritual Forum. I'm so glad you're here. I am here with part two with Michael Koyoti, and we're going to be digging into some really cool stuff now. Uh, I think if you want to get his bio, you can look at the part one. I don't want to spend too much time introducing him again, but he's had a lifelong journey with as an engineer, scientist, musician, and and spending time with Sufis and shamans and mystical Christians and meditation and all of that, and is the author of a new book called Isness, Science, Consciousness, and Spirit. So welcome back again, Michael.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. It
Yeah.
was a fun first half. I hope people watch it.
Yeah, I do too. Is some kind of heavy talk, but it's pretty simple too. And I think that what we were talking about is our divine nature. That's what I think we're talking about is like who we are, who we're created to be. And just as a reminder, isness, as I wrote it down, had three principles. One is that the essence of our consciousness exists in the present moment. And the second is that we're on an infinite journey and we don't arrive, and no one is on a better, further, more successful journey than anybody else. And the third is there's a universal consciousness. And this is where we recognize that we are one and that there's a golden rule, so that what we do to others, we do to ourselves. And so those are the three, the definitions or whatever of isness. Did I get that right?
I would state the infinite journey as it is. It has no beginning, has no end.
Okay.
And it's unique to every individual spirit. So for someone to tell you what they have achieved on their journey is what you need to achieve on yours is kind of irrelevant. Unless it's relevant to your journey. But the point is that when we live a life attempting to achieve some elusive goal and sacrificing our present moment, we're giving up our journey, which has no end. So
Okay.
that's really the message about the infinite journey, is that it's unique to you, and there is no ultimate goal to achieve. There are lots of wonderful experiences along the way, but so many aspects of our life, we're told that if we sacrifice, that we'll achieve something very often unachievable or elusive as a result of our compliance and sacrifice. And that's the importance of the whole infinite journey concept.
Okay, so if somebody says, this is what I've learned on my journey, and this is what you will want to do too, that's not really applicable. Could be,
It could be,
but not necessarily so.
but not necessarily so.
So that brings us to like religion, where I found the truth. I found the truth, and let me share it with you. And this is the truth. And as long as you do this, A, B, C, and D, this is where all the doctrines and dogma and all come in, then you too will find the truth. That's kind of not right.
Well, let's take it a step further. It's, if you believe in this and you submit to our belief system and our hierarchically controlled organization, you will achieve some elusive goal.
Yeah.
Basically it. And
yeah.
And so what they're asking for you to do is not pursue your own journey. This whole hierarchical control aspect is founded in the basic principle that everyone is inherently flawed and incapable of experiencing their truth and their reality on their own. So therefore, they need to be spoon-fed. That the masses are incompetent. We need to control them. which comes out of the fear of people controlling them, their biggest fear of a peasant revolt. So you have to control them so as not to have that, because that's how they lose power. But this is a prevalent thing across, it's in religion, it's in science, it's in academia, it's definitely in politics. It invades every aspect of our existence. And I boil it down to a few sort of litmus test components of it. The first is, as I mentioned, you're just dirty, fallen, not capable, not divine at all, inherently evil. The second is that, if you submit, comply, obey with our belief system, science, politics, religion, spirituality, whatever, then you will achieve. And it's always an elusive goal. It's always something that you can't see anybody have achieved it, except for the guys on late night TV who have the pool with girls in bikinis and 3 Ferraris, and they say, if you follow my system, you can live like this too. But we all know that's a ruse. But the other aspect is the dividing the population, creating divisive issues to divide people. And of course, that prevents a peasant revolt, but it also disconnects us from all of these things, by the way, interfere with the principles of isness, right?
Right.
One interferes with you have a sacred presence that exists just in the moment. The other is your journey isn't infinite. You need to obey and comply so that you can achieve this thing when you die or when we win or whatever. And the divisiveness is what makes us not acknowledge that we're all connected. And there's always the elusive savior that will come. And so therefore you don't need to be responsible, because as long as you're part of the club, you're going to be saved, and it's going to happen soon. We see this across religions, organizations. It's an archetypal, I call it the savior syndrome. And all of these aspects of hierarchical control are designed to keep a handful of people in charge who are equally enslaved with their power. If you take their power away, they are just as destroyed as if you take the master away from an enslaved population, just as lost. But the objective is to keep humanity from perceiving their birthright presence, keeping us living in fear and trauma, fear of the past, or trauma from the past and fear of the future. Machiavelli would say, a good leader is both loved and feared, and that's how you lead. And keep one from embracing their infinite journey, embracing the fact that this journey is mine and mine alone. I have a unique perspective in this universal consciousness world. It's there for me to explore with infinite possibilities, not encouraged. And you're separate from the person next to you. They're bad because they don't believe in our system. So therefore, you know, you can do whatever you want to them. And you're on our side, so you're on the side of good. It's prevalent. We are persistently bombarded with this in every aspect of our reality. Literally, news media, academia, science, politics, religion, spiritual organizations. They they all take a page from the same book, and it's we probably can dive deep into how this happened to us. If we are all born this sacred being with our own unique perspective, how did we get so far away from this? And it's not our upbringing. It's not, what you're taught when you're growing up. It's, it's this persistent imposition on humanity to and its propensity to want to be ruled and enslaved and controlled. And as I said, I don't think that the people at the top of the hierarchy are any different because they are enslaved by their power. It's two sides of the exact same coin. They are equally lost if they lose their power. They are living in just as much fear of losing their power as you live in fear on the of the repercussions of not adhering to their beliefs and authoritarian rule. So the big mystery is, how did we get here? And
why do we stay here?
And why do we stay here?
And why do we stay here? Because I mean,
so
I think
damn uncomfortable.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people do like the security and the comfort of having some sort of hierarchical system that plans their life, that I don't have to independently create. I don't have to worry. This thing will take care of me. I think we're seeing that more and more and more. And so I think we're definitely participating in this. And I completely agree. This is in every aspect of our life. And I think the reason we're having this conversation specifically in this podcast is because it's so important to actually see it. Because I think a lot of people don't see it because it starts very early. You go to school and school has a controlling hierarchy.
Of course.
And kids don't know any different. That's what it is. And, the principal won't let me wear my t-shirt or whatever it is that's happening there. And I have to obey, and I've got all these rules. And oh my gosh, I saw my own girls grow up in some of these schools, and they had to walk like this or to stay apart, or they were separated at lunch, and all this stuff that this controlling hierarchy was programming them. And so I think we just grow up thinking this is our reality. This is our reality, but we're creating it, right? I mean, like we're not just completely innocent. I can't believe this is happening to me. We are holding up this structure by our obedience to it.
We're all suffering from PTSD.
Oh, say more about that.
Well, the desire to just, there is this spiritual aspect of surrender. That's the natural aspect of surrendering to your journey, but that gets transposed to surrendering to an authority who's going to tell you what to do. And the desire for that comes out of being wounded and hurt and in pain. And it's comforting. And it's not that when one is on their own journey, it's not about surrender. It very much is. But you're surrendering to something that is intrinsic to you. You're not surrendering to something outside of you. You're surrendering to your own truth and your own journey. And we've been so separated from that it's hard for people to find comfort in that. It's more comforting to feel like, well, I can fall into this organization and, I feel loved and I feel cared for. And that should be an aspect of how we treat each other anyway. So a lot of that is just the absence of compassion and selfless service in the world. Most service is very much has a agenda to it. I'll give you this, but I want you to convert to my belief system. We'll give you this scholarship, but you have to believe our scientific principles. If you deviate from that,
you're ejected.
You're ejected.
No more scholarship.
Yeah. So I think it's a confused state, and it comes out of trauma. I mean, I've helped a lot of people who are exiting from cult experiences. And the very first thing I tell them is, they don't even recognize this. So first of all, you have to acknowledge that you're suffering from PTSD. You're suffering from trauma. And if it's a physical injury, you don't go and re-injure yourself. For God's sake, don't join another cult to replace the old one. Get in a safe environment, a safe place, and heal. And recover your own spiritual sovereignty, and figure out what your journey is. About half the time, they go back and find another organization to join. It just seems like we have been genetically ingrained and culturally just infused with this desire to be ruled and controlled and told what to believe, and want to believe what we're told, because if we don't, then we won't be part of the club. We won't be part of. We'll be alienated.
So I have two questions. The first is on the lines of the trauma. So how did we all get traumatized? I know how some people get traumatized with child abuse and, those kinds of horrific things.
I think it's spiritual trauma. I think that when you're persistently told that your self-worth, your spirit, your presence is insignificant, that's harmful. When you're told that your journey is not relevant, you need to do this instead, that's hurtful to the spirit. So I think it's a spiritual trauma. Yes, there's also physical and psychological trauma, and the world has plenty of that as well. But there is a spiritual aspect of trauma where at a very early age we're just told, stop daydreaming.
Right, stop dreaming. And I think if you look around, like toddlers are handed iPads, and they're electronically indoctrinated very, very, very young, and so they never have this experience of even exploring their imagination. I worry a lot about that. So what about the human spirit that never explores its own imagination and has just been replaced by electronics? And I think that is on purpose by the controlling hierarchies.
It seems to be accelerating. That they seem to be refining the techniques, but the reality is, it's not like we haven't been here before. Every major hierarchical structure has cratered under its own weight throughout history, from Mesopotamian empires, Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Roman Empire. They've all buckled under their own weight because the hierarchy gets increasingly more incompetent and their ability to maintain control falls apart. I read Machiavelli not because I thought Machiavelli, what he was talking about was awesome. I don't even think he thought what he was writing about was a good thing. I think he was describing all the ways that hierarchies fail and the things that hierarchs, princes, kings need to worry about in order to maintain control of the population. And all of those things come to pass. I jokingly compare it to the Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner cartoon. No matter how many Acme products he gets, it's either an anvil or falls off a cliff or hit by a truck or smashes into a rock. He always gets it in the end. And Machiavelli is sort of a very serious version of that allegory. And then what happens is humanity goes through cycles where, when these hierarchies fail, we're back to minimal society, living closer to the earth until the next person raises up their head and says, hey, I remember I remember how to do this. Let's do it again. Let's control the population again. That doesn't answer the question why and how do we get here and why do we keep doing it to ourselves?
Yeah.
And I know offline we had some conversations about that. I'm happy to delve into that, but maybe we need to talk a little bit more about the characteristics of this, of how hierarchies persistently interfere with the individual essence of the spiritual individual.
Yeah, let's do that first.
Yeah.
Because I think so many people are so fooled by, if just the right people get in power, everything will be great. Or if we just replace capitalism with socialism or with communism or with some other form, everything's going to be fine.
Savior syndrome.
It's like when the idea of consciousness doesn't change at all, just a form of government. I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
We have just the wrong form, economic system form. We just have the wrong form of government. If we fix all that, it's all outside of ourselves and it's all the same thing. It's just trading one controlling hierarchy for another controlling hierarchy, which, as you say, will eventually build itself up to some point that will fall on its own weight and start us all over again, and so we just can't seem to see this. So let's talk about how, like you said, let's talk about how the controlling hierarchies show up and what they do and how they keep us from our isness.
Yeah. Well, when we talk about the principles of isness, our essence exists in the moment. The essence of our consciousness is a dimensionless, timeless presence in our reality. We're here to experience this moment. First and foremost, we are under a constant assault to not live in the present moment. Persistent external forces, and the sources of that is hierarchical in nature. It's coming from religious organizations, religious hierarchies, government hierarchies, the news media, which is very much a hierarchy. I mean, it's controlled by what? Is it down to a single corporation that owns them all? I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
We were at 6 for a while, but I'm not really sure.
There seems to be only 2 or 3 large corporations that are funding them through advertising. So
yeah, and I think there's 2 or 3 that are funding everything, but they certainly control our mind. We know that. Yes.
But there seems to be a conscious effort to keep humanity from living in the moment and embracing the present. That's the frontal assault on every conscious being in the universe, is that we're the tools are trauma and fear. You know, you want to create as much fear of the future as possible, and as much trauma in the present and in the past, to propel you to submit, to avoid what you're fearful might happen in the future. How do you get to being in the moment? And the underlying premise of that within hierarchies is that humanity is just, they're just cattle. They're not worthy, they're dirty, they're fallen, and not that the people in the authoritarian hierarchy command are any better, of course, but you know, somebody needs to get control of the unwashed masses. And so,
Yes, I want to pause for a second, because I can see this in education. You are uneducated. We need to educate you. I can see this in science. Your body isn't good enough. We need to medicate it.
yes,
We need to implant chips. We need to make you more super, because you know you're very, very flawed. I can see this in government, where you guys can't organize yourselves. You're just completely, I mean, it would be complete chaos if it weren't for us. You need us. And religion, where, you know, it's like you have to, you are a sinner, or you are flawed.
You're inherently evil.
You're inherently evil, yeah, or you're succumb to evil. So it happens in every dimension. And I think people see it in religion. I don't think they see it so much in science. I don't think they see it so much in.
It's prevalent.
It's prevalent. Everywhere.
It's everywhere. It's a persistent barrage of
you need
declaring your unworthiness.
Yeah.
Keeping you in the state of trauma and fear, and out of embracing your sacred presence and providing the savior. You know, you need this, you need these rules, you need these belief systems, you need this science.
Yeah.
Which all this science now is allegedly settled, so there's no more scientific inquiry. So don't ask questions.
Yeah, the science is settled. Well, I think we saw a lot of this. I know it's kind of a sensitive topic, but I think we saw a lot of this in the last few years with the way the whole COVID thing was handled, because it was like fear, separation. Only listen to me, And people were like, oh, you know, I'll listen to you because.
Oh, it was classic. It was a classic.
It was classic.
Hierarchy, because they divided the population.
Yes.
I heard people say unvaccinated people should go to jail, or should not be allowed to make money, or, you know, there was just huge I marveled at it. I was out here in the Texas Hill Country, and it's a bunch of ranchers. We weren't really paying attention to it. We'd look at it and watch people come into towns, tourist town, and just like, really?
It was a classic hierarchical, controlling hierarchy.
Yeah.
And people submitted in every way. But it's not the only one. We're doing it all the time.
No, it was a textbook example of how a scientific hierarchy can swoop in and use all the tools in the book to create trauma, create fear, divide the population, and create a savior, and an elusive goal, which was, if you do what we say, this whole thing stops and we can all go back to normal, which was as elusive then as it is now.
Yeah. It's a formula. And I think it's important that we start recognizing these formulas and kind of wake up to them, to see this is not in line with my divinity. This is not in line with who I am as a human in this manifestation with the divine nature that I am. And
Mhm.
I don't need to give up who I am to any of this. I
Yes.
guess my question to you, though, is this a matter of eliminating controlling hierarchies, or is this a matter of being present even though controlling hierarchies are everywhere?
Well, it's a little hard to single-handedly eliminate
Well, for
ruling
sure.
hierarchies.
I mean, it could have a revolt,
I
revolution.
well, you know what? Um, I love there's I'm not that steeped in Jewish traditions, but there's a belief in Judaism, if there's enough, there's like 10 people in the world who get it, can save humanity. Um, I think we need more than 10, but there is something along those lines. But it's imperative for everyone to just persistently bring their attention back to their self and realize I'm part of the universe. If I treat somebody one way, I'm treating myself that way. And start adhering to those principles. I mean, we all slip and fall and have emotions. We're human. Life is messy, but it's about persistently getting back to that. As far as hierarchies are concerned, they're all ultimately crash and burn on their own. I don't think that proclaiming a revolution to take down hierarchies is going to solve it. I'm more interested in, let's start building the structures to pick up the pieces when they crash and burn this
Okay. All right. So
this
we know the
this
controlling
goat
hierarchies.
rodeo.
Okay, that we know that the controlling hierarchies are going
Yeah.
to crash and burn. So you're saying your concern is in keeping whatever wisdom we have
Yes.
so that when we rebuild this next time, when Neo faces the architect after
Yes.
a seventh time, that he makes the right choice or the choice that will end up freeing humanity, I should say.
And I don't think we wait till things come crashing down. I think they're doing a good job crashing down now. I think you start building those kind of things as best you can today.
Yeah, many people talk about creating an alternate society, an alternate
Yes.
community.
Alternate technology. Let's get back to the original internet, which was not a centralized, it was a peer-to-peer distributed network, and start building community networks, and stop letting the three big carriers control the internet backbone. Let's move our energy and food production back into our communities, and stop reliance on supply chains, because those are the things that are going to crash and burn. We all starve. Let's start doing that. These are things we can start doing now.
Hmm.
Um, and so this is the engineer talking, who watched the beauty of the internet as a truly decentralized technology become taken over by the last mile was taken over by 3-4 companies, and then the backbone is controlled by a handful of large carriers. And now the content on the internet is completely curated, and everything you search is cataloged and used as information to profile you. I mean, that wasn't the internet when I started using it and working on it, and building. And sadly, the technology that I worked on helped speed it up. So speed up bandwidth, so all these great things could be built on top of it. So
Mm,
I had no idea that was the intent,
mm,
but apparently that
mm,
was.
mm.
Um, but we don't sit around and wait for a savior. to save the day any more than we sit around and wait for everything to crash and burn. We really have to find our communities and start building out not only communities that honor the sovereignty in individuals, but sovereign communities that create independent abilities to live, to eat, communicate, heat and cool their homes, light their streets, educate their children, get as far away from a centrally controlled or globally controlled hierarchy as possible. So I think that we can do today, and that builds, pockets of infrastructure that survive when things go down. I live in a right now, I live in my travel trailer on 10 acres of land, and I'm the last one to realize the power's out. My well stays charged for days. My lights still work. It's not till I go grind coffee in the morning I realize, oh, the power's down.
And that's because you have
I
your
run off batteries.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So we really need as communities to build that independent capability, especially food, and especially information, and communications. With the technology is there for us to do that, start building.
So withdrawing our participation in these large controlling hierarchies to the extent we can, find our small communities, and there has to be some sort of fail-safe method there so that we don't, within even our small community, some sort of controlling hierarchy doesn't start to form.
Isn't that always the case? There's always somebody. I mean, I worked in food co-ops when I was going to college, and there's always somebody in the food co-op would stand and say, I'm going to control this whole thing.
Yeah, I know.
I'm in charge of this cooperative.
So I think consciousness really matters, because I think consciousness really matters, because the form that we have in our world is an outpicturing of our consciousness. So
Yes.
if we don't change our consciousness, we're going to create the same thing. It happens. And so I think that's one of the reasons we sustain it. But so something has to happen so that we say isness is who I am. And I want to be around a bunch of people who know the isness is who I am.
Yeah.
And that is going to be a central tenet to this community. And so in any time a controlling hierarchy looks like it's starting to form, we have some sort of something to come back to who we are.
It really boils down to each individual. And I think we have to figure out how to raise children right again.
Right.
To raise them to not lose their wonder of the world. The most amazing experience I ever had was looking in the eyes of my firstborn son. And it stunned me, because there was a look there that just you won't see again.
It's amazing. I mean, the newborn baby, which all of us used to be. Mm-hmm. So it's not just your son or my daughter.
Yeah.
It's that we all came in with those eyes. Because I remember also seeing my firstborn child when I was walking her in her stroller just along the street, and the wind was blowing a little bit and the leaves were quaking. And I just saw in her eyes, they were just like wide open and just taking it all in. Yeah. That was isness, that was.
Oh yeah, that's childlike wonder.
100% presence. Yeah. And we all came in that way, and then we're kind of handed all these tools, and I think even we talked about trauma. I think the process of growing up is trauma after trauma after trauma. And I think you're right. It's not just about abuse. It's about severing your connection with yourself.
Yes.
And having and then suddenly now the leaves that are quaking in the wind kind of our background, and what's more important is, what did Johnny say about my shirt today?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's it's essential for, if we are to go to the trouble of building communities that honor sovereignty, to embrace that childlike wonder
Yeah.
in the moment. And if you lose that, then you start thinking about, because what do I need to do to become a productive, responsible citizen?
I've just really recently awakened, as old as I am, to the recognition that that was the machine that I was grinded through,
Mm-hmm.
and that I was programmed from the beginning to be a productive citizen in some way, to work for a corporation.
Yeah.
And I got that from my parents, not that they were trying to enslave me, but that's what they knew. And it's like, well, if you can't make it on your own, you got to always go work for a corporation. And the minute you do that, you're in another controlling hierarchy. It can look like freedom, it can look like money, benefits, all that kind of stuff, but really it's a controlling hierarchy that you're agreeing to be a
Yeah.
part of.
Yeah.
And we do it for our survival, and we do it because we don't think we have any other options. And that's the mind game that's been played on us all this time. Like you said, you're not good enough to make it on your own. You need us in order to survive. It doesn't sound like that overtly, but that's what it is.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
what it is, over and over and over again. And the reason I was so excited to have this conversation with you, because I think we're probably always at this precipice, but it just feels like it's very, very daunting now. Like we have, if we don't if enough of us don't wake up to this right now, that we're going to go in a direction that we may not even be aware enough to regret. But looking at it now, I would say we would regret it. Where transhumanism and the digital everything, the one world everything. Talking about losing the sovereignty of nations and just having this one thing. Oh my gosh, it's like we're doing the ultimate controlling hierarchy. But people are so fooled. So I think what happens is this third principle about we are all one.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's hijacked. I think people believe that we are all one can mean that we all just have to kind of agree to subject ourselves to this controlling hierarchy.
But if you don't, then you need to be expunged.
Exactly. We're all one and you are not.
And you're not part of the club.
Right.
No, I've found not only a lot of the sort of new age spirituality, but our new age of politics is just being overwhelmed with narcissism.
Uh-huh.
It's a misplaced isness. It's like it's all about me and my feelings, and so I'm going to be embraced by a club that's going to protect my feelings, because it's all about my feelings.
Yes. Yeah.
We confuse our feelings with who we are.
Yes.
And so we've created this new sort of collective. It's like a synthetic collective consciousness that revolves around this narcissism of a particular belief system. And now we have to be very careful what we say. Can't even tell jokes anymore. It's so sad.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think, and of course you don't want to be purposefully insulting, but
of course not. Of course not.
Because of the, the golden rule, like we talked about. But
unless it's people who are not part of our collective.
Oh, then
universe.
It's okay.
Then you can be as insulting.
Oh yeah, you can be as insulting as you want, and we've seen that. Yeah. But I think that's a really good point, that our feelings are not who we are. That is such a good point. And even the fact that is out there, that people are being told that their feelings matter so much that everybody needs to organize around them, that is contrary to isness. That is contrary to our divine nature. It is a programming.
that is now the social norm, is that we need to, we're not respecting the spirit, the sovereignty of the spirit in everybody. We're tiptoeing around everybody's feelings, as if the feelings are what manifests around your essence. It's what you've manifested around your essence. It's not you. It's what you radiate,
Right, right.
right? And 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 it's what propagates through the ether and affects everybody else and poisons the environment. And that's not spiritually enlightenment at all, although they would tell you it is.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
it's not honoring the sovereignty of the individual, because if they confront somebody who is very different in belief with them, they don't honor the divine aspect within them. There's, you know, I like to I like to rewrite that song, you know, looking for love in all the wrong places. They're looking for hate in all the wrong places,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah.
and calling everyone else hateful. And, you know, as I always say, there's plenty of hate to go around. You know, where's the love? Where's the honoring of the sovereignty? And that's, you're right. And it's fascinating how this whole concept of universal consciousness has been hijacked. It sort of aligns with the Gnostic view of the demiurge, who came in and infected humanity and created a sort of artificial reality for humanity to control and rule them. And it's almost like the demiurge came and infected this universal consciousness and said, well, we're going to create a club, and either you're in or you're out. If you're in, then, and you follow the rules, then you're part of the universal, our universal, artificial universal consciousness. And if you're out, oh God, hell, brimstone, fire, imprisonment, so on. And that allegory from the Gnostic traditions, I think, is really, really powerful in what you just described, because it describes that exactly. That demiurge is this viral, you know, higher artificially intelligent thing created by accident by the goddess who came to save her creation on earth, and she mistakenly created this demiurge that infected us and created this artificial, it's a beautiful mythology, whether it's
Interesting,
real or
yeah.
not, it doesn't, but
It's an interesting
it's
allegory, if
beautiful.
nothing else.
Yeah.
I think that I like what kind of what you say. I think that this idea, because I see this with spiritual people all the time, that it's about being part of the universal, you know, oneness, and so it's about the group, and it's a mimic. It's an imitation. It's an imitation of what oneness is, because oneness is the sovereign spirit being one with other sovereign spirits, right? I mean, it's not like melting out our who we are as individual aspects of the divine.
Yeah.
It's about keeping ourselves as a whole and honoring others, but also knowing that what we do to others harms us. I feel like there's something about spiritual people that are not getting this, not
Well,
getting this thing.
maybe it's because they're missing the journey,
Okay.
realizing that you're on an infinite and unique journey. It's your own. It's not somebody else's, nor is somebody else on your journey. So while you honor the sovereignty of other spirits, you also are on your own unique journey and they're on theirs. So that doesn't necessarily mean that we're all going to be in unison in terms of our feelings and our thoughts and our actions,
Yeah.
does it?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it and really what you were describing is not honoring this sovereignty of the human spirit, which is the singular essence consciousness, your presence, your present existence here and now. It's honoring something you said 10 minutes ago that hurt my feelings, or what you might do to me in the future. So now we're back to living in the past and the future, living on the words of what was said before and worrying about what will be said in the future rather than just embracing the moment.
Okay.
And so I think that kind of helps flesh out what the disconnection is in this demiurge infected universal artificial universal consciousness.
Yeah, no, I'm an optimist, so I feel like we're going to make our way out of this.
I believe in humanity. We seem to persist and pull it off. And the wisdom of the past, though it's often lost, is not totally lost. It's still there to be found. And in my 10, 15-year journey writing this book, I was pleased to see that there are remnants of it, little breadcrumbs in every culture that tell us this is what happened before. It can happen and will happen again. And here's what you do as a spirit being, as a sovereign spirit being, to persistently navigate it. So the answers are there. We can't change the world, but we can change how we react to it.
Yeah, and I think I think what we're saying though is, yes, we can't change people, places, and things. We can't change the outer. We can wait for all the hierarchies to come down and then rebuild, but I mean, who knows if we'll be around for that. But we can remove our agreement to be controlled by hierarchies to the extent that we can. That's one thing that we can do. We can learn how to raise our children in ways that honor their unique, divine, just in awe of all life nature. And I think that would, for me, I think that would probably mean not having them in the controlling hierarchy education system. So we need to find ways to cultivate our own food so that we're not subjected to the way the controlling hierarchy controls food. So those are some things we can do, because I can also see spiritually minded people saying, well, to heck with all of that. I'm not going to let any of that bother me. Even if I'm controlled by hierarchies, I can just be present in the moment, and I can be present in the moment and not do anything. Do you know what I'm saying? Like people could
being present in the moment takes a lot of work and effort. So that is doing something.
Okay.
It will force you to do something in response to a external influence that wants you to stop being in the moment. So
got it. Okay.
What do you do to persist in that state?
Right. So the state of isness would awaken you, one, to the fact that there are controlling hierarchies that are trying to keep them from that state. And so that would cause you to be in action to remove yourself.
I don't like the word awaken because it sounds like an achievement.
Okay.
It is a persistent thing. It's messy as all get out. It's hard because we have persistent attacks to not be in the present. So it's just persistently getting back to that.
Okay, I get that. I mean, when I think about awaken, I think it's continually, but I do get that. But the idea that people say, well, I'm awake now. Well, that's that does sound like a goal. It sounds like it's done. And there's another awakening moment and another awakening moment, and there's another awakening moment. So it really is a continuum, but it's not the way it sounds. So your preferred word is persistent, like persistent presence.
If you're awake now, wait till later. You'll be even more awake, and it'll be amazing. until
right,
you
right.
awaken again, and then it'll be even more amazing. And
Right, right. I mean, I've told people, I said, the prayer that I've put out to the universe is to see more, truth that I have not been able to see, to
yeah,
see more of what is reality. And I'm in this process of awakening where I get a glimpse of this, and it's, oh my gosh, the world is so much different than I thought. And then I kind of get into a state of it feels pretty normal, so kind of a structured state. And then I'm awakened to something else, and I'm awakened to something else. It's
yeah.
constant.
It is. That's the beauty of the infinite journey. There is no end.
Yes. Yeah.
Infinite possibilities, and there is no end. There's no
Yeah.
resting point where you can say, "Oh, I've achieved nirvana. I've settled all scientific
The
quandaries,
science is
and
settled.
science is settled, and we now know everything, and I can just be an awakened being."
Yeah.
It's life is not that neat, and it's messy.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
constant challenge, and I don't know but what it's intended to be, a persistent assault on our present state. It seems like historically, biblically, scripturally, there was persistent tampering with our genetics, our reality, our civilization. I don't know how much that, I mean, this much we know because it's, well, as they say, it is written.
It is written so that, yeah, because I've heard many people talk about there's some sort of genetic manipulation that happened
Well,
in our species that has caused us to
the
be,
Adam and Eve story is
yeah,
about genetic engineering.
yeah, yeah,
The Elohim are plural. There's not a singular word.
yeah.
Yahweh was a
One of the
very
Elohim.
jealous God who
Yeah,
demanded that his ordained rulers created genocide on the countryside and wiped out entire populations. And if they weren't willing to do it, he would remove that king and replace him with another. I mean, obviously there was a lot of tampering with humanity at the higher, and create a hierarchically um
subjugated.
subjugated masses. And
Yeah.
I read those things like a history book, like, yep, this is uh, we need to know this so we are aware of where we came from, and we can hopefully resist it happening to that degree again. But
And I think that we are powerful beyond what we know. And I don't mean that in power over, I mean in terms of our divine nature. I think that whatever was manipulated, or what, to me it's like our governor has been kind of like we got a governor on us, we've been tamped down. But I do believe that I do believe that if we choose to take the path of realizing our isness, the nature of who we are, that we are a real threat
of
powerfully
course,
to the controlling hierarchy.
yeah,
We are so infinitely, amazingly powerful, and it's just a matter of being that, recognizing that, being on the path, and what did you say? Persistently
persistence.
choosing that.
They're persistent, so we need to be persistent right back.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
All
that's
right.
what meditation teaches you to do, is to persistently redirect and bring your attention back to your center, your
Yeah.
source.
Okay.
And it's an ongoing thing. It's not something you do for 10 years and then you achieve it. It's something you continue to persist at.
Okay. All right. So even though there is no beginning or end, we do have to end our podcast. So do you have any last words that you want to say?
um I I would just encourage people to seek their own truth, and When I sign my books, I always tell people, may you embrace your journey with childlike innocence
I love it.
and childlike wonder.
Yeah.
And I think getting, you know, persistently bringing that state is important. And if you're interested in my book, I have a website, michaelkoyoti.com. It's Koyoti. There's links to it there. I'm moving away from the hierarchical control of Amazon and moving to a direct sell, but that's going to take another month or two. It is available on Amazon and will likely continue to be, but I'd love for people to visit and correspond with me on my site and hopefully build a community, because I'm really curious about others' thoughts and ideas on this.
Great.
And their perspective from their unique journeys. And I appreciate yours, Carol. This was a great conversation.
It's a really interesting conversation. Yeah. And I'll have whatever links you want on the podcast page. So
Okay, great.
thank you so much, Michael. Thank you everyone for listening. And I just think we just take this to heart, embrace the present moment with childlike wonder. And I now close the spiritual forum.